Hello and welcome to the next video in our series, A Journey Through the Map of Runeterra. At this point, we've gone through the jungles of Ixtal, over the deserts of Shurima, to the peaks of Targon, sailed to the port city of Bilgewater, journeyed through the fog of the Shadow Isles, moved over the magical land of Ionia, and now it's time to cross the sea again, to Noxus. Noxus is located here, at the top of the map. Noxus is a powerful empire with a fearsome reputation. To those beyond its borders, it is brutal, expansionist, and threatening. Yet those who look past its warlike exterior see an unusually inclusive society, where the strengths and talents of its people are respected and cultivated. The Noxi were once fierce barbarian tribes, until they stormed the ancient city that now lies at the heart of their domain. Under threat from all sides, they aggressively took the fight to their enemies, pushing their borders outward with each passing year. This struggle for survival has made modern Noxians a deeply proud people who value strength above all, though that strength can manifest in many different forms. Anyone can rise to a position of power and respect within Noxus if they display the necessary aptitude, regardless of social standing, background, homeland, or wealth. Those who are able to wield magic are held in particularly high esteem, and are actively sought out in order that their special talents may be honed and best harnessed for the benefit of the Empire. But in spite of this meritocratic ideal, the old noble houses still wield considerable power, and some fear that the greatest threat to Noxus comes not from its enemies, but from within. Now we will go over some of the champions of Noxus, those you might find should you journey there. Keep in mind, this video is focused mostly on the zone of Noxus, so we're only going to touch briefly on each of these champions. There will be separate videos in the future for each one. Cassiopeia, the Serpent's Embrace. Cassiopeia is a deadly creature bent on manipulating others to her will. Youngest and most beautiful daughter of the noble Dukutu family of Noxus, she ventured deep into the crypts beneath Shurima in search of ancient power. There, she was bitten by a gruesome tomb guardian, whose venom transformed her into a viper-like predator. Cunning and agile, Cassiopeia now slithers under the veil of night, petrifying her enemies with her baleful gaze. Darius, the Hand of Noxus. There is no greater symbol of Noxian might than Darius, the nation's most feared and battle-hardened leader. Rising from humble origins to become the Hand of Noxus, he cleaves through the Empire's enemies, many of them Noxians themselves, knowing that he never doubts his cause is just and never hesitates once his axe is raised. Those who stand against the commander of the Trifarian Legion can expect no mercy. Draven, the Glorious Executioner. In Noxus, warriors known as Reckoneers face one another in arenas where blood is spilled and strength tested, but none has ever been as celebrated as Draven. A former soldier, he found that the crowds uniquely appreciated his flair for the dramatic, not to mention the spray of blood from each of his spinning axes. Addicted to the spectacle of his own brash perfection, Draven has sworn to defeat whomever he must to ensure that his name is chanted throughout the Empire forevermore. Katarina, the Sinister Blade. Decisive in judgment and lethal in combat, Katarina is a Noxian assassin of the highest caliber. Eldest daughter to the legendary general Dukutu, she made her talents known with swift kills against unsuspecting enemies. Her fiery ambition has driven her to pursue heavily guarded targets, even at the risk of endangering her allies. But no matter the mission, Katarina will not hesitate to execute her duty amid a whirlwind of serrated daggers. Kled, the Cantankerous Cavalier. A warrior as fearless as he is ornery, the Yordle Kled embodies the furious bravado of Noxus. Many claim Kled has fought in every campaign the war hosts have waged, acquired every military title, and never once backed down from a fight. Though the truth of the matter is often questionable, one part of his legend is always the same. Charging into his battle on his untrusty steed, Skarl, Kled fights to protect what's his, and takes whatever else he can get. LeBlanc, the Deceiver. Mysterious even to other members of the Black Rose Cabal, LeBlanc is but one of many names for a pale woman who has manipulated people and events since the earliest days of Noxus. Using her magic to mirror herself, the sorceress can appear to anyone, anywhere, and even be in many places at once. Always plotting just out of sight, LeBlanc's true motives are as inscrutable as her shifting identity. Mordekaiser, the Iron Revenant. Twice slain and thrice reborn, Mordekaiser is a brutal warlord from a foregone epoch who uses his necromantic sorcery to bind souls into an eternity of servitude. Few now remain who remember his earlier conquests or know the true extent of his powers, but there are some ancient souls that do, and they fear the day when he may return to claim dominion over both the living and the dead. Riven, the Exile. Once a sword master in the war hosts of Noxus, Riven rose to the ranks on the strength of her conviction and brutal efficiency, and was rewarded with a legendary runic blade and a warband of her own. However, on the Ionian front, Riven's faith in her nation was tested and ultimately broken. She severed all ties to the Empire, seeking to find her place in a shattered world, even as rumors abound that Noxus has been reforged. Now, forced to return in chains, she faces the judgment of her former homeland. Samira, the Desert Rose. Samira stares death in the eye with unyielding confidence, seeking thrill wherever she goes. After her Shuroman home was destroyed as a child, Samira found her true calling in Noxus, where she built a reputation as a stylish daredevil, taking on dangerous missions of the highest caliber. Wielding black powder pistols and a custom-engineered blade, Samira thrives in life or death circumstances, eliminating any who would stand in her way with flash and flare. Scion, the Undead Juggernaut. A brutal warlord from a bygone era, Scion was revered in Noxus for choking the life out of a Demacian king with his bare hands. But denied the peace of death, he was resurrected to serve the Empire once more. His indiscriminate slaughter claims all who stand in his way, regardless of allegiance, proving he has retained little of his former humanity. With crude armor bolted onto his rotten flesh, Scion continues to charge into battle with reckless abandon, struggling to remember his true self between the swings of his mighty axe. Swain, the Noxian Grand General. Jericho Swain is the visionary ruler of Noxus, an expansionist nation that reveres only strength. Though he was cast down and crippled in the Ionian Wars, his left arm severed, he seized control of the Empire with ruthless determination and a new demonic hand. Now Swain commands from the front lines, marching against the coming darkness that only he can see in glimpses gathered by shadowy ravens from the corpses all around him. In a swirl of sacrifice and secrets, the greatest secret of all is that the true enemy lies within. Talon, the Blade's Shadow. Talon is the knife in the darkness, a merciless killer able to strike down without warning and escape before any alarm is raised. He carved out a dangerous reputation on the brutal streets of Noxus, where he was forced to fight, kill, and steal to survive. Adopted by the notorious Dukutu family, he now plies his deadly trade at the Empire's command, assassinating enemy leaders, captains, and heroes, as well as any Noxian foolish enough to earn the scorn of their masters. Vladimir, the Crimson Reaper. A fiend with a thirst for mortal blood, Vladimir has influenced the affairs of Noxus since the Empire's earliest days. In addition to unnaturally extending his life, his mastery of hemomancy allows him to control the minds and bodies of others as easily as his own. In the flamboyant salons of Noxian aristocracy, this enabled him to build a fanatical cult of personality around himself, while in the lowest back alleys, it allows him to bleed his enemies dry. And so that's it for the champions of Noxus. There's definitely a lot of story here, a lot of related stories specifically to the champions themselves, which we're definitely going to explore more in future videos. But let's get back to the zone itself. What does the environment of Noxus look like? The immortal bastion at the heart of Noxus is far more ancient than the Empire itself. It is said that it was constructed on the order of Dread Revenant Mordekaiser, and parts of it have been raised and rebuilt over the centuries, such that there are layers to its streets, and some districts now lie below ground. Few dare walk these streets after dark without guards to protect them. Noxus is an aggressive and expansionist empire, always looking to widen its borders by conquering new lands. It does not always do so by violence. Indeed, many are the nations that have taken the knee before the Grand General, seeing a chance for greater stability and security in joining the empire. Those who defy Noxus, however, are crushed without mercy. Noxians respect strength above all things, and the only way to remain strong is to be constantly tested. They relish the opportunity to compete with one another, since to not be challenged is to grow weak, and even those at the peak of power must always seek new ways to challenge themselves, or they will not remain in power for long. It is not just physical or martial strength that Noxians admire. Those who demonstrate expertise in politics, craftsmanship, trade, and magic all help to create a stronger Noxus. A number of ports and cities in northern Shurima were voluntarily assimilated into the Empire. The original inhabitants of these settlements live in relative peace with their Noxian counterparts, seeing the exchange of food and preferential trade as a price worth paying for military protection from raiders. Noxian cities are characterized by imposing structures, claustrophobic streets, crenellated buildings, steep sloped walls, and immense gateways. Their cities emphasize the strength and dominance of the Empire and are highly defensible. An enemy attempting to take a Noxian city by force can expect to be fought and resisted at every turn, for even the humblest home is built like a fortress. As Noxus expands and defeats neighboring cultures and cities, it offers the conquered people a choice. Swear loyalty to Noxus and be judged solely on your worth, or be destroyed. This is not subterfuge or any kind of ruse. The Noxians are as good as their word, and many who have embraced their conqueror's way of life find their prospects greatly improved, but those who refuse to bend the knee are crushed without mercy. Drakehounds are a species of wingless, wolf-sized carnivores that lair in the mountains to the north of Noxian capital. They are vicious pack hunters, and much favored in Noxus as war beasts, guard creatures, and expensive, albeit dangerous, pets. To own one or more Drakehounds is a visible symbol of wealth and power. Now we can't come to Noxus without looking at their military. Noxus has one of the largest armies in the known world, composed of elite troops such as the Trifarian Legion, as well as hundreds of individual localized warbands. Led by their own chieftains, marshals, and captains, each warband is unique with its own culture, hierarchy, and favored way of war. They fulfill specific roles as part of a much larger war host, perhaps fighting as frontline shock troops, heavy infantry, scouts, assassins, or cavalry, whatever best suits their skills. Even within the Trifarian Legion, there is little uniformity within the ranks. In Noxus, a warrior's natural talents and specialties are embraced, rather than forcing them to conform to a certain way of waging war. This carries across into all aspects of Noxian life. They believe in discovering what you are good at, and then finding a way to utilize that to make the Empire stronger. The most elite, respected, and battle-hardened military force within the Noxian Empire, the Legion, is led by Darius himself. They are not only the best soldiers in Noxus, but also the most loyal, utterly devoted to the Empire and its leaders. Their armor is heavily utilitarian, and often features 3 indentations hammered into their breastplates, representing the Trifarics, the 3 principles of strength, and the name given to Grand General Swain's ruling council. Noxian forged weapons, tools, and implements tend to share the same severe aesthetic, as can be seen in the Empire's architecture and dress. The forges of Noxus never cool, churning out swords, axes, and armor in vast quantities for distribution to the war hosts. The Empire values function over form. Their designs often incorporated additional uses, such as hooked handles to unhorse-mounted enemies. In recent years, Noxus has begun to experiment with crude black powder weapons and chemtech from Zon, though the results are mixed, often as destructive to friends as they are to the enemy. Monstrous reptiles from the southern jungles, basilisks are fierce predators that can grow to gargantuan sizes. Young basilisks are prized riding beasts, and few can stand against their charge. After they become too large for a rider to control, they are put to use as beasts of burden, or sometimes as living battering rams to smash down the walls of besieged cities. War Masons are resourceful scouts, engineers, and warriors who design and oversee the constructions of roads, bridges, and fortifications. Often the first indication of Noxian expansion is not the sight of troops on the march, but a lone War Mason scouting enemy territory for possible invasion routes. And so that's it for Noxus. Honestly, at first glance, Noxus looks like a subjugated, tyrannical society. But then once you get really into it, it's like really democratic, and anyone can be anything, and anyone can rise to power. And then it's oppressive at the same time. So it's like, I don't even know what to think half the time of Noxus. There's like such a mesh of 2 very competing ideas of free will and oppression. And it's like tough to decide whether you like Noxus or hate Noxus because their ideals aren't really bad, but then their implementation sometimes can be bad. You know, like they want to expand, and if you don't want to expand with them, they're gonna force you to expand. Like they're gonna just take you over, right, under heel. But then at the same time, once you join, they're like, oh, but you can be anything and do anything, and you're allowed to be unique, and we're just gonna make whatever you're good at help the empire. What? It's hard. It's hard to decide with Noxus whether you like them or hate them. But honestly, an awesome zone. I'm super excited to explore more with not only the champions but also the land itself. There's a lot of story in Noxus, and we're gonna come back to the zone in future videos. So that's it for Noxus. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Goodbye for now, and I'll see you in the next one.